It made it easier for cavalrymen to reload the pistol while on horseback. Hello everyone and welcome to the AmmoMart time machine. We're going to be transported back to 1871 and discuss the history of the .45 Schofield. Some people call it the .45 Smith Wesson, and there's a very particular reason for that. Reason was that the round was actually developed by and for Smith & Wesson for their Model 3. Now, some people get confused between the Model 3 Smith & Wesson and the actual .45 caliber Schofield pistol. They were essentially the same except for one important point, which was the latch. So you have to keep in mind that in 1871, the government was looking to replace some of their old and sometimes single-shot pistols. And at the sort of suggestion of a military officer named George Schofield, he talked Smith & Wesson into changing the latch design on their Model 3. It made it easier for cavalrymen to reload the pistol while on horseback. And once we demonstrate how this works, as compared to, say, one of your more conventional single-action army type of pistols, you'll see the advantage right away. The major advantage being you can reload this in half the time it would take you to do that with a little bit of practice. So before we get into the actual pistol, let's talk about the round. This, of course, is a .45 Schofield round, and I'm going to lay next to it a .45 Long Colt. Now, these two are sometimes confused, and there's a reason for that. They've always been confused. Believe it or not, these two rounds were in military service at the same time, and it caused a nightmare in the logistics train. Sometimes units would get one bullet or the other, and that was okay only if you had the Long Colt revolver and you got sent .45 Schofield ammo. You could use it, but the reverse was not true because of the length of the case. They appear somewhat similar and sort of along the same line of .357-38. One will work, the other will not. The .45 Schofield was originally designed to shoot a 200 grain bullet. And in a monumental leap forward, it was an inside lubricated cartridge instead of outside. Prior to that, the outside lubrication would drag all kinds of fouling and basically ruin the gun prematurely or require a lot of cleaning and maintenance. So, huge leap forward there. And another leap forward was the power. This guy would run somewhere around 30 to 35 grains of powder, and it would actually propel the projectile downrange at around 750 feet per second. That's nothing to sneeze at. In fact, it actually has some similar characteristics to the later developed .45 ACP by John Browning, which we've covered in a previous video. So plenty of sort of power and very, very handy to use for people that had other things going on like reins of the horse or dodging arrows from Comanches. This was a cool gun. The problem was the caliber didn't stay around for very long, just a very few number of years, and the Army decided they were going to go with the Long Colt exclusively. Now, in this model, you can get it in .44 Russian, which is a whole nother story we'll cover later on perhaps. And all of the period calibers would have shot this, including .38 long, on and on. In fact, in the interest of full disclosure, this is actually a .38 special, obviously a replica from Taylor Company, but it's a beautiful piece, and it's, I tell you, what an amazing functional piece of art, and we'll show you that in a little bit. So it didn't last for very long as far as military runs go, but it's still around today as replicas, and people still really enjoy shooting it. So major difference, if you're unaware, is once we put the gun on a little bit of the half cock and we pull back on the latch here, the whole thing comes down and up at the same time so that the shells will eject quite quickly, and then you can have a quicker reload. This was an interesting sort of design for the time, and you can see why cavalrymen would like it. Now, related to all of that, one of the reasons why perhaps it didn't stay around as long as you would have expected it to was its perceived lack of power. I don't know that's true, but to test it out, what we're going to do is get some clean ballistic gel, and we're going to run off some of the Cowboy calibers, not only amongst themselves, but then see how they stack up with some modern day firearms, say 9mm, 38 Special, and of course, 357 Magnum. Now, keep in mind, as we go forward, some of the things you have to be aware of is these were designed for black powder cartridges, which required a lot more case volume than is required now. For instance, you can make comparable power in each one of these with about 4, 5, or 6 grains of modern powder, say OBP 244, 246, or 248. Imagine that. 30 to 35 grains compared to 5, 6, maybe 7 at the most. It's a remarkable leap forward in power, but you do have to be mindful that if you own one of these older guns, this of course is not, you can blow up the action with modern powder. So you have to be a little careful about your recipe. And as always, if you do your own hand loading or you're looking to get into reloading, please get somebody to help you through the process until you get some more experience, because it can be quite dangerous and not only one, cause injury to yourself or others, but obviously then ruin your gun. So at the end of the day, you can see that this and this similar, and on the horizon is the 45 ACP. They all perform pretty well, but significantly, this was designed for a specific purpose. And when you don't need cavalrymen anymore, chances are you don't need the platform or the caliber. I hope you enjoyed this sort of brief dive into the history of 45 Smith & Wesson or Schofield, and stay tuned for some more cowboy action shooting.